as our next guest comes in. Thank you very much. We'll see much more from Rob through the day. I'm joined at the moment by David Shiels from the policy think tank Open Europe. David, you were listening to Rob and I chatting there about whether the rebels have the numbers. Assume they do. Boris Johnson was basically saying, I will be pushed into calling an election.
Yes, that's right. And I think that is almost the inevitable consequence of the process from the last 12 months. The government hasn't been able to get its legislation through the House of Commons, and in a parliamentary democracy that usually means calling a general election. Of course, Boris Johnson, under the Fixed Term Parliaments Act, he is no longer at liberty to call an election himself. He will need the support of 2/3 of the members of the House of Commons to support him.
Now that really matters, doesn't it? Because Boris Johnson, as we know, has a majority of 1, so he'd be relying on a lot of the Labour MPs who've been saying for months, let's have a battle, let's take it to the people.
That's right, and whether if he is prepared to surrender his majority, as it were, to call an election, to request Parliament to call an election, whether the Labour Party can really refuse that request is open to question, and there is some suggestion that they might try to tack on to that some sort of mechanism for delaying the Article 50 deadline.
It's kind of out-manoeuvring each other, isn't it? You've got this sense of people circling and parliamentary forces circling. I mean, is your gut feeling that an election is likely even before we leave?
I think it's very likely, and I think it seems to be what we're hearing over the last day or two is that it seems to be there will be an election in October, and that is designed in a sense to give Boris Johnson the room, if he has returned with a majority, to go back to the EU in those last few weeks in October to seek a renegotiated deal. Of course, that is a big gamble on his part if he goes down that route.
But actually, that's a really good point to bring up, because let's take the Prime Minister at his word. Boris Johnson said very firmly to Conservative MPs yesterday, if you rebel and if you take away the option of a no-deal Brexit, you are cutting the legs off my negotiating position in Brussels. He's saying, look, the EU has to have something to force it to blink and create a withdrawal deal I can accept. What do you make of that tactic? Do you think there's a possibility the EU could blink?
Well, there's something in that, in the sense that I think the EU's problem over the past year in offering concessions or seeking to find a way out of this impasse is that it has never been confident that any concessions it offers will get through the House of Commons. So it can give something to the British Prime Minister, whether it was Theresa May or now Boris Johnson, and there was no indication that it would actually get through the House of Commons. So if he got a parliamentary majority or was able to cobble together one after an election, then it might be come to the point where the EU have to get serious about offering something to him in terms of a renegotiated deal.
So you do have this extraordinary potential calendar kind of unfurling before us, David, where if the vote goes against Boris Johnson and he calls an election and he gets his election on October 14th, 3 days later, an EU summit. I mean, we keep saying it's the most dramatic day yet. It could get more dramatic.
It is, and of course one possibility is that if the government goes to the country, it mightn't get a clear answer. There could be another hung parliament, there could be days of cobbling together some sort of coalition or confidence and supply agreement, and that could add further confusion into the mix. So I think there's going to be several weeks of high drama coming up.
And just a final thought, David, as we stand in front of the Houses of Parliament, the role of the Speaker of the House, John Bercow, who no friend really of the government, of which he's a member.
That's right. It all really comes down to him today, because he is the man who decides whether opposition MPs will be able to and rebel MPs will be able to take control of the business of the House of Commons, which is the mechanism to let them then legislate to delay Article 50, and that is ultimately up to him today, although every indication is that he will be on the side. If he thinks that there is a majority in the House of Commons for that, he will want to put that to the test.
David Shiels, thank you very much. Yeah, that drama just approaching, and you're right, the role of the Speaker of the House of Commons, will he back the rebel alliance? That's going to be absolutely crucial. When he starts talking today, we will be listening.